2024 is going to be about as jarring a year for you hardcore college football fans as I think you may have seen in most of your lifetimes. Some of it bad, some of it good. Maybe a lot of it good. I don't know. Here's what I'm getting ready for. And we're starting now in January so that this doesn't sneak up on us in September. Do you understand? I think you do. I just want to remind you, we're headed towards the superconference era, right? This is the SEC with Texas and OU. That means the Big 12 without them. This is the Big 10 with both the Southern California schools and Washington and Oregon, which means #RIP Pac-12. What does that mean? Well, it means a large collection of the premier brands in the sport are in two conferences. It means a lot of the most talented players and coaches are in two conferences, not exclusively, but majority. Just to illustrate that, and just to remind you what kind of collection we're looking at, I had Jesse pull the recruiting rankings right now. Do you realize in this cycle right now, the 2024 cycle, 27 of the 32 five-star rated players are committed to either an SEC or Big Ten school. 78 of the top 100 players in the country are committed to an SEC or a Big Ten school. Our partners over at FanDuel hit us up and said in our futures market for the 2024 National Championship, the top 8 teams are all either SEC or Big Ten, and 15 of the top 18 are all either SEC or the Big Ten. Now, that's not shocking. Everyone knows that's where a majority of the talent is, right? But I think it's like growing up in Buffalo, New York, and then your parents tell you, Charlie, we're moving to Phoenix, Arizona. We hear it's hot there, right? Well, you can't really imagine 114 degrees, even if it's dry heat, Charlie, until you actually experience it for yourself. And similarly, I don't think folks fully get how big the gulf is going to be between these two conferences and everyone else. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's a thing that you're going to have to acclimate yourself to, or maybe accustom yourself, your mind to thinking about, because you're still, I'm speaking collectively, we are still just coming out of what we called the Power 5, G5 era. And that meant, even though you knew there was imbalance, like you knew the SEC most years was better than the Pac-12, for broad strokes purposes, we both considered them Power 5 conferences. That is not the case anymore. You've got two big boys, and then you've got, I don't even know how the ACC and the Big 12 are going to feel. I don't know. You don't know. We got to find it out together. But that brings me to my next point, and this is really going to be jarring for you. The automatic qualifier conversation for the playoff is going to be much more contentious than playoff expansion. Yes, we're entering the 12-team playoff era, but that's not the debate. That's done. We've got it, whether you like it or not. But even some of you who supported expansion, I don't think are fully realizing what the format is this upcoming year. Now, there's some debate right now, so it may switch, but it's not going to switch by much. Right now, if nothing changes, do you realize that the playoff format for this upcoming season is 12 teams, but it is a 6-and-6 format, meaning 6 spots are reserved for conference champions? That would be ludicrous in the Power 5 era. But in the Big 2 era, it is totally insane. And I don't fully think people are grasping what's happening. You're just thinking 12 teams, it'll sort itself out. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. To put a finer point on what we're talking about here, that means in a 6-team format, you're guaranteed 2 G5 spots there. And G5 as a moniker is infinitely more watered down than it was in the old system. And it was watered down in the old system. In the new system, understand what we're talking about here. You got a ton of good teams in the Big Ten, ton of good teams in the SEC. We crowned the conference champs there, crowned one in the Big 12, probably going to get a first-round bye, a top 4 seed, like Oklahoma State, just because they're in a different conference, would be ranked higher than an Alabama or a Georgia, even if they'd be favored by 2 touchdowns. So anyway, not to get in the weeds on that. But you start going down the list. Guys, it doesn't matter if Liberty is ranked 27th in the country. If they're one of the 2 highest ranked G5 conference champs, they're going to the playoff. They're in. They could have 3 or 4 losses. if they win their conference and they're one of the two highest ranked G5 champs, they're going to the playoff. And they may go at the expense of one of those Power 5 teams in the SEC or the Big Ten who played an infinitely tougher schedule that's ranked 10 spots ahead of them in any reputable poll, who's sitting at 10 or 11. And you're saying to yourself, oh, Josh, nothing wrong with that. This is called the bubble in college basketball. That's true. That is about the end of the comparison between the sport of football and the sport of basketball. Some people out there didn't want expansion anyway, so you're mad for different reasons. There are other people who wanted expansion, but they just want the top 12 in, or top whatever number your field is. I think there is a massive chunk of the college football public who wanted expansion, but who have not dug into the devil in the details yet, and they're not realizing this is the case. Now, there's a debate going on right now. The thinking is they're going to shift to a 5-7 model, which is a little bit better, but still a very flawed concept. It would be 5 auto bids for conference champs instead of 6. It's still 5 too many. Auto bids as a concept are very stupid, and they get dumber and dumber the bigger your field gets. So that's going to be a very, very big point of contention this fall. Just get ready for it. Also this fall, no more divisions. No more divisions. Now, I am a fan of this, I think. It's a new world for us all, so I think I'm a fan of it. No SEC East and West. No Big Ten leaders and legends East and West. We don't have that anymore. Now, obviously, this presents a potential conundrum because, as we know in the Big Ten, forever, the West has been secret garbage to just outright garbage. And the East, the West has been that. The East has been where the action is. Well, now that you do away with divisions and you're just taking your 2 best teams for your conference championship game, might we see Ohio State versus Michigan in the final week of the season and then a rematch in the Big Ten title game? It would suck. It would be bad. Wouldn't like it at all. That's not good for anyone. If you don't believe me, experience it one time and then hit me back. Josh, how could you deny more football? Hey, if 1 of something is good, 2 of something's way better, huh? Yeah. Scarcity and value and all that. Look it up, kids. Look it up. So there is also this world where Ohio State, Michigan play one week, then they turn around and play in the Big Ten title game the next week, then both of them are in the playoff. Maybe they play a third time. It's unlikely. It's not impossible. And as long as that kind of thing is on the table, you are just asking for it. And then comes the other logical follow-up. What's the value of a conference championship game in the 12-team playoff era? I would argue it doesn't have much of one. Now, it's going to be there because networks have paid far too much for it. It's too precious a piece of inventory for leagues to do away with. But I think we're going to see this first 2 or 3 times around over the next 2 or 3 years. These conference championship games, I think, will greatly lose the juice that they've had for us for a long time. That's inevitable. It's inevitable. I mean, imagine this, by the way. So imagine Georgia-Bama this year in the SEC. They go to Atlanta. They've played 12 games. They go play a 13th game. Georgia's undefeated number 1 team in the country. They lose. They drop to number, 5, I guess, or 6. And they don't get a first-round bye or anything like that. Georgia, to win a national title, just because they were good enough to make it to Atlanta and had to play another game, that was game 13. They may have to play 14, 15, 16, 17 games to win a title. They got punished for being good enough to go play for a conference title. In retrospect, they will look back and say, we were better off just not even going over there. Now, in fairness, they probably thought that about this year. But this year was a little bit more of an anomaly than what the norm could be in the future format. So that's something that we're going to have to wait and see on. And lastly, but certainly not leastly, we got to do away with this quote. We got to take people who say you are what your record says you are, and we got to send them over to the trash can and say, sit there, sit by the garbage for a little while. Think about what you just said. That's a deep cut Summer Catch reference for those familiar with the Freddie Prinze, Jessica Biel smash baseball hit back in the day. You are not always what your record says you are in college football now. In the future, you are infinitely less to just be what your record says you are. Are you ready, friends, to acknowledge that there may be some 8-4 teams that belong above some 11-1 teams? If your answer is no, we have work to do. We have work to do. When you see the disparity in strengths of schedules here in the coming era, you cannot be buying into this foolish notion that was already foolish but is just flat out crazy now that, oh, you just are what your record says you are. You know what else we have to do? We sort of have to recalibrate our expectation level and redefine what is great, what is good, what is average, what is poor, and what is unacceptable. Because there are going to be some extremely good teams out there go 10-2, and there are going to be some fan bases say, we kind of underachieved, didn't we? No, you didn't. No, you did not. You played probably 8 teams in the top 25. You went 10-2, pretty good. There are going to be some teams out there go 6-6, because the new 6-6 or 6-6 in the future in some of these conferences is the old 8-4, and you're going to have some coaches get fired for going 6-6, and folks are going to have to learn the hard way. We didn't properly redefine our expectation level to account for the modern schedule that we're playing in some of these conferences. It's a brave new world. Brave new world. We're all going to have to live in it together. I don't think it's all bad. There's a lot of positive. I've told you, past couple of shows, I think some good changes are coming, but some big changes are coming.